the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. You know very well that one of the biggest complaints Kenyans had was that the cost of energy, that is petroleum products and power, was extremely high. I think then we'd be interested in knowing what are some of the interventions that you made during your tenure to try and mitigate this. Then where you're going now to the Ministry of Transport, where two things that are really big that are being spoken about in that particular ministry. One is that is the cost of building our roads. I know that before the finance bill collapsed, the discussions were that to do the entire road network, almost ₦1 trillion is required or more. And then also there's a lot of unpaid bills. That's some of the issues that were brought before Parliament for contractors who have built our roads. So what are the interventions you will take if you're confirmed for this position of Minister of Transport? Are you going to look at joint concession roads and so on? And lastly, on the big elephant in the room, Kenya Airways. Now that you're going to the Ministry of Transport, if confirmed, that will be also an issue we'll deal with. Kenyans would like to know how you intend to deal with Kenya Airways. Are we going to put more money and seeing losses, or is there a way of dealing with it, or should it just be sold? We are interested in knowing what your views are on that. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Nominee, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Gladys Boshole. Good question on what we've done and achieved as a country to bring down the cost of energy to where it is today. Let me start, Honorable Chair, by saying when I checked last, and then because of the concern when our President was going to the space to talk to the Gen Zs, I did check the challenge of power and what we need to do to be able to address the cost of doing business in this economy. Cost of energy is one of the most significant contributor to the cost of doing business. In industry, the cost of energy in production contributes to up to 30 to 40%. And therefore, a country cannot be competitive if the cost of energy as a unit cost of production is significantly high. Chairman, honorable members, the energy portfolio is a very interesting area when I consider to where I'm going. A very structured area. We have a tool we call Least Cost Power Development Plan, which we've just signed off the 2024-2043 Least Cost Power Development Plan, which articulates the building blocks and how to match demand and supply. What happens, Honorable Chair and members, is that every bit and piece of energy that is generated is paid for by the customers, whether we sell it or not. So we don't generate power which you don't need. We have to ensure that we match the demand and the supply. And because the demand side can grow suddenly while the supply is built over 3 years, there's got to be very good planning. As we speak now, we are planning for power for Kenya for 2027, 28. In fact, those are the power plants which we are currently building in Olkaria, in Kiambere, Kamburu, Sola, and so on and so forth, in Meningai, in Nakuru. We are currently building power plants. And what we did to basically get down to the question to address the cost of energy is to really ensure that the energy mix in generation, we do generate power from solar, from wind, from geothermal. Those are the three cheapest cost of generation, including, of course, hydro. And the most expensive generation is from thermal. And during times of drought, we run thermal more because the hydrology would be low. Because of the hydrology having been good in the past 1 year, we've had a lot of water, so we are running our Kiambere, Kindaruma, Gitaru, Cascade fairly well. But more importantly, the mix to ensure that we do not dispatch the expensive power when we don't need to. is a very important component in managing the cost of power. One of the profound things we've done, Chairman and honorable members, which I might even call legacy, is switching off a power plant called Moroni, which is very expensive. It dispatches power at about 70 shillings per kilowatt hour. So Moroni GT, which is somewhere between Kisumu and Moroni. We all know where Moroni is. We have also switched off a power plant called Kipevu 1. Moroni generates 60 megawatts. Kipevu 1 generates 74 megawatts. At end of life, it has reached end of life, and we switched it off. And likewise, we've switched off 76.4 megawatts in Kipevu 2. These power plants alone, Chair, if to contextualize, it generates 210 megawatts, dispatches about 15% because it's only used for picking, but the cost to the economy is about 10 billion Kenya shillings annually, when it is dispatching at 15%. If we have to dispatch more because of not obeying the order of merit of economic order of merit of supply, the bill would go from 10, 15 to 20 billion. Those power plants are down. The promoters of these power plants have been through this town to see everybody to try and bring them back. But because of the cost of doing business, it doesn't make sense to give them another lease of life. The challenge of climate change commitment, which we have made for 2030 to be 100% green, is another one which has catapulted this country and placed it in a very, very good pedestal. So, Chair, let me end that initial question by saying it will be of interest for members when you write the report to check and confirm that in the month of July, both cost of electricity and cost of petroleum products is the lowest in the country in the last 15 months. And it takes a real difficult position to sustain those power plants not to be switched off, not to be switched on again because of what I've said, the cost of doing business and the climate change commitment which we've made for this country. As regarding some of the things that I will do where I'm going in the roads and transport, Honorable Chairman, honorable members, it's an interesting area. It will be interesting to note that where I come from in energy, or where I've served twice before, if we have one pending bill, it is due to a court case. We don't have any pending bills. I have quickly checked the road sector with a pending bills of about 166 billion, with unfunded commitments of about 1 trillion, some with the Chinese government and some with the local contractors, unfunded. And I don't know, I've also checked, Honorable Chairman, that the exchequer support that goes to roads annually is about 55 billion. So if that continues, it will take us in excess of 20 years to finance what has been committed today, leave alone financing the pending bills, which sits at 94 billion with an interest, forex gains and what have you of adding up to about 166. And therefore there is a job to be done, Chairman, members, and I think we'll have to work together given the challenge that we have a finance bill that has not gone through. Luckily, where I come again, maybe to give a bit of hope to where I'm going to, is that all energy works is off balance sheet. And it will be of interest to members and, of course, Honorable Chairman, to note that energy deals with a budget of about $10 billion annually, all off balance sheet. And I sit here to basically pronounce that we are working to deliver the cheapest cost of electricity and today the cheapest cost of petroleum products in the country, albeit with no budget support, because all this is private capital, off balance sheet. We do not have to work on the treasury balance sheet. Otherwise, we'll need 20 years, Chairman, to be able to fulfill those commitments that we have signed onto and that we have to deliver because they are contractual. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, if you allow me.
Yes.
If you allow me,
Yes,
just to follow up on what Davis is talking about, 1 trillion into commitment of 160 billion in debt. It looks really grim, you know, like you will run away from the job. What is it that you will do to attract capital and actually to offset the 1 trillion and also to pay the bills? Because you have done it in energy. What will you do? Because we want to see hope. Kenyans want to see what is it that Davis will do to change the story. Thank you.
Yes, Davis, and we had not also touched on Kenya Airways question.
Through Chairman Owen, it is difficult. It's early in the day after nomination, but I think it's possible. I've said we work off balance sheet in energy. And when you, Chairman, you have term sheets which stipulate that maybe the cost of constructing a kilometer of road or the cost of generating geothermal, if you are coming in as a private investor, should not be indicative tariffs. We gazette indicative tariffs through EPRA, where when you're generating power, we tell you if you're coming in, we're not signing if your tariff is above 6 cents US. So I think we should really be looking at frameworks like if you are coming in, we cannot sign a contract if you are building a road beyond 100 million Kenya shillings per kilometer, so that we don't get into commitments of trying to build a road for 500 million Kenya shillings per kilometer. And so even as you walk in to do your initial study, you don't spend time to push us to a commitment where we are building a kilometer for the price of 5, 6, 10 kilometers. We will need to look at, more importantly, how to work off balance sheet. When I say that $10 billion, it sounds crazy. But petroleum alone, which comes into Kenya today through the OTS or the current G2G at about 740,000 metric tons annually, cost the economy some 6 trillion, crazy numbers. I mean, I just need to refer, 6 billion US dollars annually. And we do not have a time when the country is dry. Even at the peak time of the tightened monetary policy, when the Fed went into 5.5% interest and the interbank rates were crazy and there were no dollars in the industry, we did not run dry because we do not have to rely on the treasury to help us to bring these necessary products to drive the economy. So we'll be looking together, honorable members, at how to resolve this challenge. It's a big challenge. Raising a trillion Kenya shillings to build those kilometers of roads where commitment has been given. Having to pay the 160, 170 billion Kenya shillings on bending bills and growing by the hour, growing by the day, is something that we can look at what you would call securitization of the little money we have in the road maintenance levy, and borrowing a bullet today and paying with an interest over 10 years, and we should be able to finance. As to whether those are acceptable, being in an IMF program today is something that we'll need to sit down together and resolve, because it's a commitment this country has made. We'll have to address it. Thank you.
Point of information, Speaker. Small point of information.
Yes, President.
This might be beneficial to the nominee, and I think I agree with him. The proposal of getting resources securitized by our instruments, which is, for example, fuel levy. In last Parliament, when I was chairing transport, Honorable Speaker, we actually proposed, and we have actually a legal instrument. We have the law, so which means the nominee might want to exploit that opportunity, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, the Deputy Speaker is saying you have not touched on her question on Kenya Airways.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Kenya Airways is another interesting investment which you do know that we all love to have our Kenya Airways, and I think we should continue to have it and promote it. Kenya Airways, as we speak, and for the short time I've been preparing to appear before you, I do see Kenya Airways running a system that needs a lot of support, and where the Kenya government, I think to date, has given support to the tune of 600 billion Kenya shillings to be able to stay afloat, given the negative negative cash capital that they are operating in. Chair, I think the reforms at Kenya Airways, starting from the needs a lot of communication and ownership by the employees of Kenya Airways, and we're going to sit down and get them to understand that it's a problem that must be sorted out internally. The CBA, or the negotiated terms, and holding on to them when somebody else is having to pay your bill, is something that we'll really need to sit down as an enterprise, as Kenya Airways, and address. I've also seen Kenya Airways having a portfolio of flights that may not be suitable in the embryo, which do not have the kind of bottom belly to carry the kind of luggage. And therefore, the first option when you are flying out or flying in, because of the way we carry 20, 30, 40 kilos, is not to fly Kenya Airways. So it is self-defeating to be having the highest fleet of about 13 embryos aeroplanes in this fleet, and therefore giving us an uncompetitive advantage in terms of customers having to choose alternative flights when they might have actually wanted to fly Kenya Airways. Chairman, I do note that Kenya Airways in the past 2023 accounts had an operating profit of about 10 billion. We'll need to look at what they are doing right and build on that. Possibly take out some cost out of the system, because there are costs which we really must remove to be able to allow them to come out of the challenge they currently face. But more importantly, if you look at the 600 billion government support in Kenya Airways, and the fact that Kenya Airways today, the Kenya government owns about 49%, 48.9% of Kenya Airways, it will be, if we really kind of allowed government to pick more shares out of that 600 billion, government will go to a shareholding structure of about 80%. I think we need to bring in a partner. If you see successful hotels, allow me to use hotels, Chair, where they build networks around the world to be able to push their customers into their networks, we need to build a network of a supporting airline that we can leverage on to be able to bring Kenya Airways out of the current challenge they face, but more importantly, to support tourism, support our flower industry, support our green produce in avocado, the things we export because of the perishability very quickly into the external markets, and where the inflows in foreign currency is so significant. So we need to work on Kenya Airways. Thank you, Chair.
That will do. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.